Hi friends, new and old, welcome to the channel. Today I am starting a series where I am going to be creating the next generation of Monster High. Well, hypothetically. To catch everybody up to speed on what I'm talking about and what Monster High is, clearly I'm a huge fan of it, but not everybody's going to know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to summarize what Monster High is as a brand, and I'm going to include a little bit of summaries of the 3 generations that have existed up to this point. This is by no means comprehensive. I don't have time to deep dive on the history, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to make that interesting enough. So if you are more interested, or if I don't explain something that you're more curious about, my primary source has been the Monster High Wiki. So I'll put that in the description. You can read about anything and everyone that I mention to your heart's content. Let's just start the summary. So Monster High is a doll brand. It was created by Garrett Sander and produced by Mattel in 2010. The line was inspired by classic monsters such as Frankenstein and Dracula, and explores what their fashion-focused teenage children may look or act like. The original generation, which ran until 2014, so it ran for 4 years, it had this very distinct art style to their character designs, as seen in the webisodes that they posted online or were included in DVD releases or in the box art. However, a lot of movies after a period of time were released in a 3D animation, but they're more recognizable from the specific 2D animation that was very unique to it. The main character of this generation, though admittedly the term of main character doesn't necessarily apply to something like Monster High, it's more of an ensemble show, so it's something more like Bratz, where there's not a main character, versus something like Barbie, where Barbie's clearly the main character. Monster High is kind of more of an ensemble piece, but if I were to say what the main character is, at least first couple movies, would be Frankie Stein, which is the daughter of Frankenstein. And that went on again for 4 years. It was popular. However, in 2014, a second generation was created. It was a soft reboot. It softened the artistic style, gave them bigger, like, Disney-esque eyes, and softened the art style. It was more in the 3D art style, but it just kind of took the gritty edge, I guess, off of it. As the usual threat for creative expression, which is angry Karens who forget that they can control what their children buy and get mad when things aren't catered to their children specifically. However, Mattel listened and created Gen 2. Either way, it really didn't last very long, and there were several characters where they released dolls that never actually appeared within the series. It just hard cut really soon. But as for a plot, it was hard to find any information about. It didn't last long enough for the wiki to care enough. A lot of the characters were similar. So generally looking at, aside from art style, their personalities were very similar. And it more focused on Draculaura, who is the daughter of Dracula, than Frankie. But again, was more of an ensemble piece still. And the origin of the school itself was different. In Gen 1, it was this long-lasting school that had been around for centuries and was a big thing, whereas it was created within the duration of Gen 2 within Dracula's mansion as a safe haven or a reunion for all these monsters that had been scattered across the world due to a mass exodus caused by humans. And there were antagonistic characters that were revolutionary and wanted to start a war rather than trying to reconcile any differences. It very much, I saw, like, the movie, like, the soft reboot movie, it was very, like, Hotel Transylvania energy. And while it didn't necessarily change any of the characters we had per se, like obviously they had to be altered for this new plot, but generally they're the same, and or looked very similar anyway. And they introduced several characters that have yet to appear again. They were just in Gen 3 or Gen 2 and never appeared again. However, the most recent reboot was released in 2022, and it is the most drastic change from the original. It is completely rebooted. They changed a lot of character design, personality traits, relationship dynamics. It focused on Claudine, who is a werewolf born in Gen 1. She is half werewolf. Her father is human. She just realized that her mother is a werewolf and is navigating this unfamiliar world of monsters alongside a group of new friends. The disconnect between Gen 1 and Gen 3 reminded me, like the discord and the absolute shell shock between the two is very similar to rebranding of other toy line or media companies. An example in modern history is My Little Pony. They did the exact same thing from their previous generations. Then they had Friendship is Magic. That blew up in popularity, had a lot of fans. Then they they ended that, rebooted it completely, and a lot of people got upset because it was so vastly different from the show they had liked before, not realizing that this is a pattern within the industry. It's par for the course. It's very fascinating that this is like a continual cycle. It's not something I'm going to be talking about today. I might make a video about it later, but just for the sake of this, for our purposes for this, that's just a normal thing to have a completely refreshed, like, reboot after a while. Considering that progress waits for no one, G3 will eventually reach an end, and eventually a new generation will start. I thought about throwing my hat in the ring and see what I would do if I was to create a Generation 4 following in the shoes of Generations 1, 2, and 3. The point of this is to reimagine how I would take this new generation by using the previous ones as stepping stones, seeing what people like, people don't like, while bringing in newer fans and not alienating older fans. Trying to do things like refreshing fashion and such, but not completely revamping characters when they have a specific staple to their character that they've had through all 3 generations. Any form of like defining trait, like type of monster or characteristics that they have had consistently, they will continue to have. Anything that has been altered is fair game to continue to be altered. And unlike how I generally will create things, I'm trying to keep personality descriptions to a minimum, as I am planning on describing this as if it is a toy line. Personality descriptions will be just detailed enough to stimulate the imagination of a child or collector without giving a play-by-play of their entire lifetime. That's different than how I generally create things, as I am usually a character writer, but I'm focusing on this from the view of a toy line rather than specifically like if I was writing the series. And to be completely honest, people will create their own stories for their dolls when they set it up, like what I did, regardless of anything I say or any creator says. So I'm just not going to push anything too hard that is probably going to be ignored if people don't like it anyway. However, if character development is something that you would want to see, let me know. I'm planning on writing out a few diary entries. Gen 1 used to come out with these really cute little diaries with little diary entries, and I'm going to be writing the same and putting them on my AO3 fanfiction account. So if you are interested in kind of more of my interpretation that I'm not going to talk about in the videos, you can read them there. However, I will be describing some world lore that doesn't necessarily apply to characters individually, but it is important to set up the school and some relationships between monster types, how characters will react to humans, things like that, because those are staples of how Monster High world structure works. So I am going to explain those. That's what this video is. But as far as like character descriptions, it's going to be kind of minimal. So TLDR for all the people that just, I'm not going in depth in characters as I normally would, because this is a doll line. I'm not reading a 12-book series with extremely complicated lore. I'm just doing basic world building and general character descriptions and personality aspects, as if I were to be selling them as a doll line that people could imprint their own opinions on. Okay? That's what we're doing. That's what the thing is. If that's interesting, that's what we're doing. One last disclaimer. Monster High as a brand has always been about feeling comfortable in your own skin, embracing what makes you different. You know, the Gen 1 catchphrase was a lot of, you know, be you, be a monster. It was very much embracing yourself. And because of that, there's always been characters that are diverse when it comes to things like ethnicity, identities, abilities, attractions, etc. Don't come for me and be like, you're adding this to a kid's thing. You can look at Gen 3. You can also look at Gen 1. It's been there. And I'm not adding anything that isn't already there. I'm not deep diving into it. There's probably people that can go far more into that. However, it is there, and I would be remiss to not mention it or to remove it. It would be disingenuous to the franchise itself. This is my little rundown, not your broad stroke bullet points of world building. This exists in a universe where there is a long history of fighting in between humans, which are referred to as normies, or normal people, and monsters. There's been a long history of conflict there. There has also been a lot of infighting between monster groups, werewolves, vampires, other things. Just the history long ago was filled with a lot of fighting. The School of Monster High was created to bridge the gap between the conflicted monster groups while reaching out towards the next generation. It's less of a high school in a traditional sense, since most monsters either don't age, they're like immortal, or they age very slowly. Everything ages at like different rates, so it's not necessarily an age range thing. It's more of an adolescent stage of life, and providing general education for any future that they may want to pursue. It's why, if you like pay attention, you know, if I were to create like class schedules and stuff, I have. Many of the classes are more special interest based than academic, and there's lots of clubs that you can join and social groups. However, it is still structured like a school. Originally, back when it was founded, the students were all full-blooded monsters that were trying to escape human society. Probably because they were chased out. Later, throughout time, they included half monsters, so like monster-human, creatures, or monsters that have been turned to. They were humans and are no longer, things like ghosts, mummies, vampires that have been turned, things like that, zombies. And the most recent change in history was about 100 years, 200 years, it was within the last century, was the inclusion of spellcasters or magic-sensitive humans, because they are also rejected from traditional human society, so they kind of accepted them as their own, as monster adjacent. However, as of when this story starts, there are rumblings of becoming of the school accepting very specific circumstance human transfers. Generally, like monster parent, but human child, so they don't they don't fit into either world. So that but this has not technically happened yet. But that's going to happen. Some people like that. Will probably like that idea. Some people won't. That's the conflict. Now, with all the lore bits out of the way, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start kind of showing how most of these videos are going to be run while I describe characters. This one I'm not going into too much detail, because they're more of a representation of the school, than a character. We'll get into more character depth in the other videos when I'm talking about, the more main characters or what have you. But this is just to kind of show the structure of how we're going to be doing this. And the character for today, the character in this video, is the headmistress, Orla Bloodgood. Now, she is her Scaritage. Monster High loves to have their like really quirky words. But her monster origin is she is a headless horseman, or a Dullahan, which is an Irish dark fairy that kind of is similar to the headless horseman, where they don't have the head, they ride a horse, etc. So that general vibe is what she is. Her physical description, as far as like what her doll would kind of look like, the detachable head, the old dolls would do this too. Her Gen 1 and her Gen 3 like counterparts, I'm taking elements from both, but making her very unique looking, because it doesn't really, there's really little connection between the two, so we're just going to go from there. She has fair skin and a lot of freckles because, again, Irish origin. She is very tall and has like an athletic build. I have a chart that I will show a blank here of a body chart for how like the molds of the bodies will be. Again, like, oh, they have like similar body structures because Gen 3 has varied body types. Gen 1 has like the one. Their dolls are like one body type. So this is Claudine. Here. So we'll do the beauty guru. So this was like that was like the general body type of everybody. I got my collectors up here. And they all kind of have the same body type. Gen 3 introduced varying body types, different heights, different body shapes, that kind of stuff. So we are definitely taking that from Gen 3, because I think that makes it makes the uniqueness of each monster more obvious. And there's some types of monsters that I think benefit. I'm rolling the wrong way. That benefit from looking different than, say, a Yeti should look different than a cat. Okay, like that makes sense. So in this case, headmistress Bloodgood is very tall and has like an athletic body type. She has red hair. It's pulled back into a strict bun, very professional, serious, and she has very dark eyes that are almost dark green eyes that are almost black. It was kind of hard to figure out how to make that look the way I wanted it to, so I kind of tried to fuse Irish descent and the monster type. That's kind of what I'm doing a lot with the cultures, where they came from, monster origin, where the character comes from, and just, we're exploring different character designs. That's the fun of this. As far as like her fashion sense, because again, this is a fashion line, everybody's got their own fashion sense, and also little aesthetics choices that they have. So she has this horseback riding style, specifically Irish horseback riding, because horseback riding is a large thing in Ireland. I figured that out researching this. And she has a lot of like Irish inspiration to her design, while also kind of having that like dark black and gray color scheme to kind of give her the dark fairy headless horseman. She does have like a high collar, like her Gen 1 and Gen 3, I believe. I don't have the picture in front of me. Counterparts where they have like the high collar to kind of emphasize, you know, that vibe, and also, you know, the headless horseman. As far as some like personality aspects or quirks to her, she is extremely no nonsense. She can be strict, but she is also very kind. She is only one of many headmasters that have existed since Monster High was created, as it has been around for a long time. However, many will regard her as one of the best, as she is very kind and also very, she takes what she does very, very seriously, but not to the detriment of the student body or the message of what Monster High represents. And she tends to be a trusted adult to people that don't have a support system at home. She cares very deeply about her student body, as well as the monster community as a whole. However, her freaky flaws, which are just kind of quirky things they have, either personality or monster aspects, obviously she can remove her head, which freaks most people out the first time they meet her, before that, you know, and the pressure of maintaining Monster High's reputation of being a very respected multi-student body school can lead to intense pressure for her to perform well, both personally and a need for perfection from her. She doesn't do it so much onto other people, but it's a very strong conviction she has for herself. She is also lactose intolerant. That's just kind of an interesting thing I added due to, again, her Irish background. Her like must-have things that have to be with her. Everybody has these must-have things that are like their most prized possessions. Hers is her horse, Nightmare. Every character has like their monster must-have. They're things that they are important to them. They're like most prized possessions. And for Headmaster Bloodgood, it is her horse, Nightmare, and her personal agenda. It's paper. She keeps it old school. It's like her personal notes to herself. So she has that on her person at all times. Her primary loves are Monster High, her student body, and she loves to read. However, she does not like milk, prejudice, and lack of organization. Very, very straightforward. Likes and dislikes, I figured, but kind of gives you a feel for what she is. She's the headmaster. She also was a student in her adolescent years, and that's why she wants to do well by the school, because she went here when she was a teenager, and wants the school to continue to succeed. So she always wants what's best for the students, even if that means having to keep them in line if they stray out of bounds. But at the same time, she is very, she's never cruel or too strict. She is very, you can approach her even though she can play disciplinarian at times. So that's what I have for today's video. Like I said before, the structure for all the other ones are going to be probably about 2 characters per video. I'll explain a little bit about their Gen 1 and Gen 3 counterparts. I didn't bother doing that with Mistress Bloodgood, Headmistress Bloodgood, as it really was irrelevant for what I was planning on for her character in this. So, again, wikis down below if you're actually curious for comparisons and such. However, the other ones will have more brief overviews of Gen 1 and Gen 1 to 3 characteristics before I get into my variation, so you can see what I took and changed and what kept. If there is a character that you do want me to talk about, let me know. I have a very long list of characters that I plan to at least half mention, but if there's enough interest in any specific characters, I can move them up the line or actually like address them in a video, rather than just kind of hint to their existence. Because Gen 1's cast specifically is very dense. Gen 3's is not. Mine's somewhere in the middle. So, if there is a character you want me to talk about that's not like a quote main character, like a super popular character, let me know so I can make sure that I address them. Aside from that, thanks for watching. If you want to see more, the next video is going to be about the character that I'm choosing as my main character, as well as their closest friend. I'll be addressing it with their primary, like their characteristics from Gen 1 and 3, like I said. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I apologize if the video is very disorienting. I structured it a little differently, so I'll have to like overview, see if it makes sense. If not, the structure for the next video may be a little different, a little more structured. But like I said, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for supporting me, and as always, I'll see you guys later. Bye. If there